Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Brenda Vice President, Finance Programs and Administration for the Ontario Centres of Excellence. Welcome to today's Innovation Partners presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a number of organizations who are partnered in the innovation space in Ontario. Each is either a department or agency of the provincial or federal government, or they receive funding from the government. Together they offer innovators and entrepreneurs a variety of programs, opportunities, and advice to help them develop their research and businesses. Our first presentation this afternoon will be from the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs, or the ONE, and our presenter is Susan McLean. Susan is manager of the Network Programs Unit at the Ministry of Economic Development, Trade and Employment, and Ministry of Research and Innovation. ONE is a collaborative network of organizations across Ontario designed to help entrepreneurs, businesses, and researchers commercialize their ideas by providing a comprehensive suite of programs and services across the full commercialization continuum from idea to market. That's a mouthful. These programs are provincially supported and regionally delivered, ensuring that everyone across the province has access to the same high-quality resources and expertise. If you have any questions, I'm sure there'll be opportunities at the end of the presentation for questions. Please welcome Susan McLean.
Thanks, Narinder. I think that takes about the first two slides of my presentation in the introduction. But as Narinder mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs and some of the resources that it provides and the various gateways to those resources for the entrepreneurs in Ontario. And I think it's interesting to note that entrepreneurs and early-stage high-growth companies provide upwards of 60% of job creation in Ontario. So they are a very important driver of economic growth, and obviously providing services and enabling them is of key importance. So the goal of the network is really to make it easier for entrepreneurs to start to grow their businesses across all sectors. And we're here to help entrepreneurs as they access programs and services, as well as mobilizing the knowledge and resources within colleges and universities. But importantly, it's also about coordinating provincial, federal, and regional, as well as private sector programming and resources. So it's bringing everything together into one center for people and to sort of guide them to the appropriate resources. There are four main components that I'm going to talk about today, and those are the business advisory services, regional innovation centers, small business enterprise centers, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague David Meyer to talk about the programs that are designed to provide access to capital for companies. He's the manager of capital programs. So entrepreneurs, as we know, come in and support businesses of many shapes and sizes, and we have different resources that are targeted to those different components. Looking at export-oriented high-growth firms, there is Ontario's Business Advisory Services team, and they provide in-depth consultations with companies' senior executives, so really provide sort of a high-level consulting ability. Then for the innovation and technology-based firms, regional innovation centers are the primary resource that are designed to help them on their journey. And the resources provided through those are around accelerating the commercialization process, developing high-value products and services, and leveraging the research infrastructure and talent that exists in Ontario. And finally, there's the Main Street retail-oriented firms, and the resource that is dedicated for those is the Small Business Enterprise Centres, which are partnerships between the province of Ontario and local municipalities. And those, the Small Business Enterprise Centres, or SBECs, focus on businesses that are usually between 0 and 5 years of operation and have fewer than 10 employees. So, looking at business advisory services, there are 26 business advisors across 12 offices in Southern Ontario. And as I mentioned earlier, they're really about supporting those in-depth consultations with senior executives. They help to develop understanding of their clients' challenges and opportunities and connecting them to a different range of government, association, and private sector forms of assistance, as well as helping them with their strategic growth plans. So they're really, as I say, a dedicated resource, understanding their clients well and connecting them across the range of programs, services, and private sector entities within their regions. And if we look at where they are located, this sort of shows where those advisors are across the province. So in those hubs, there are 26 advisors with different areas of expertise. Moving on to the regional innovation centers. These are centers that support innovative technology-based entrepreneurs as they're working to launch and grow globally competitive companies. And they're serving to coordinate sort of all of the activities within the regional ecosystem. So really trying to create a single point of focus for technology innovators. The programs that they work on are offering sophisticated advisory and mentorship services, market and customer development support, peer networking, access to technical expertise, and financing opportunities. So they're really looking at simplifying the ecosystem. And again, sort of looking at where they are located across the province, there are 17 regional innovation centers, and ranging from sort of Thunder Bay throughout the near north and all of across southern Ontario as well. So hopefully located in centers close to you. And finally, we'll talk a little bit more about the small business enterprise centers. So there are 57 small business enterprise centers that are located across the province, and they are offering information and advice to help the startup and early stage of Main Street businesses. They're really providing one-on-one consultations, business plan review, business information, guidance, and support on programs that are available from all levels of government. And they provide access to resource materials as well as referrals to professional service providers, and also information seminars and workshops on areas of importance and relevance to people growing businesses in the communities. And when we look at the map of where they're located, it's a busy map indeed, since, as I say, there are 57 of these centers across the province. So how to connect? As we say, that when we look at all these centers, there's more than 90 across the province. So it could seem fairly complicated, but there is the onebusiness.ca website, and that is really as a central focal point, and it can sort of help people and direct people to the relevant resources close by. There are headings such as sort of starting your business, growing your business, financing your business, and under each of those there's going to be extensive links to resources and also sort of the connections into those 90 centers and whichever one would be most relevant. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to David to talk about the range of access to capital programs, and then we'll both be available for questions at the end.
Apologies for that. Thank you, Susan. So Susan mentioned that financing your business is one of the areas that you can click on through the One Business portal. And the availability of access to capital programs through the One sort of speaks to the fact that it covers the range from industry academic collaboration through advisory, all the way to helping to find resources to finance businesses. We saw today the Governor General speak about financing businesses being the main barrier to innovation in Ontario. And the One offers a couple of programs to provide seed capital, help companies seeking to increase sales, marketing, R&D, and other activities find the capital that they need to grow. So there's two programs that I'll speak about that are part of the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs. The first is the Investment Accelerator Fund. It is a seed fund. It makes catalytic investments in early stage Ontario businesses in the technology sector that have the potential to reach a global scale. It is administered by the MaRS Investment Accelerator Fund based out of MaRS. They make equity investments of up to $500,000. Typically, these are structured as convertible debentures. And companies use the invested capital for all the types of activities that you would anticipate to see from a company seeking early stage venture investment. Technology development, intellectual property protection, marketing and business development, staff, and other activities. To date, IAF has made investments in 80 companies. It also had a life sciences portfolio that was a special tranche of funding a couple years ago. All that included, there's a total of $40 million, and they've had 9 exits to date. It's a little hard to see, but this is the website that you can go to learn more about IAF. You can access this through onebusiness.ca as well, but this is iaf.marsdd.com, and this is the application page. Goes through some of the key requirements that they look for. You can apply through that site. Investment opportunities are given sort of the standard due diligence you would expect from seed funds and early stage venture capital funds. Things like an addressable market of $100 million and a plan to penetrate it. Companies that have been incorporated, due diligence on management, revenues of less than $500,000 to date to sort of give you a sense of the stage of companies that they are looking at. The second program administered through the One, aimed at access to capital, is the Angel Network Program, which connects high potential entrepreneurs with angel investors who provide capital and valuable business experience to promising startup companies. What's important to note about the ANP is that unlike IAF, the ANP does not provide any investment dollars itself. What it funds is the infrastructure and the back office and the coordination that makes it easier for angels and angel groups to identify promising opportunities and stay sustainable. It's administered, the program, by the Network of Angel Organizations Ontario, which is a not-for-profit group. They are based out of MaRS as well. They fund, I'll show you the map on the next slide of the groups, but there are currently 12 groups across the province. And there's strong integration between NAO Ontario, the angel groups, and the regional innovation centers. Some angel groups require their applicants to go through the local RIC for advice or mentorship prior to pitching to an angel group. So it demonstrates how closely integrated the One is, how it provides services to entrepreneurs and to build quality deal flow for investors themselves. Investments are often syndicated between several members, several groups, or other seed stage investors, including IAF. There's a lot of co-investment between accredited investors and angel groups and IAF. And some of the investment figures to date are on this slide as well. So as I said, 12 officially recognized angel groups under the ANP. NAOO also recognizes several angel clubs, which are less structured groups of accredited investors. But the 12 groups are typically a bit more formalized or registered as not-for-profit corporations, things of that nature. The geographic coverage you can see there relative to the RIC coverage, but what's important to note is that investments made by group members are not bound by region. So groups in a certain region don't have to invest just in that region. They can invest all over Ontario. They can syndicate with other angel groups for investment opportunities in other parts of the province. So if you are from an area that is not covered by an angel group, it does not prohibit you from pitching to that angel group. And that being said, with this coverage, NAOO regularly looks at opportunities to expand their presence across the province, and they evaluate angel group funding proposals for new groups or reconstituted groups on a regular basis. So there's always a push to look for other ways to address the needs of angel investors and entrepreneurs across the province. This is the application page on the NAO Ontario website. That's nao-ontario.ca/GUST. GUST is a platform that many of you may be familiar with. It's a network that allows angel groups and venture capital investors to connect to companies that are seeking funding. All ANP groups use GUST as a portal for applications, and it's coordinated through this one central portal on the NAO Ontario website. In the past, the kind of statistics for pitching and closing on investments About 18% of companies that apply to the AMP get to pitch, and about 14% make it to due diligence, and then about 3% close on funding. So it's very competitive. However, angel investors may have a different risk tolerance than other seed funds or VC investors, and they may have their own entrepreneurial experience or local experience that might help a company maximize its growth more effectively, be less of a risky investment for them in particular. So we encourage you to have a look at their website. I would also note that coming up on May 26th, NAO Ontario is holding their follow-on investment forum, which is a great opportunity to link companies and potential investors. If anybody in the investment community, they are certainly encouraged to have a look, and companies as well. So you can visit nao-ontario.ca and you'll learn more about it. It's on May 26th here in Toronto. So just an overview of the one, a no wrong door approach. You'll be directed to the service that best fits your needs, going through the website or through any one member. It provides local accessibility through all of its elements, and it provides a range across a continuum of innovation from product development to risk capital to build that ecosystem for innovators. So that's the Ontario Network of Entrepreneurs.
May I have your attention, please? We need the following presenters to proceed immediately to the Talent Theatre, as your session is due to begin right now. Alex Kolodkin from Set Scooter, Andre from Petro Predict, and Ashish Vidani from Pellet. I will repeat that. To the Talent Theatre, Alex Kolodkin from Set Scooter, Andre from Petro Predict, and Ashish Vidani from Pellet. Your session is about to begin in the Talent Theatre. Thank you.
And we're back. So before we move on to the discussion of youth jobs, if there's any questions for myself or Susan, we just have a couple minutes for quick questions. No, we're good? Is there cost, sorry, the question is there cost involved in accessing any of these services for the entrepreneur? Susan, you might be able to speak to that more. Certainly for the access to capital programs, it's just kind of the general cost associated with building a business case, and that kind of thing is also available. That's the kind of thing that one members can assist with. Susan, do you have more insight into that?
Yeah, certainly for some of the programs that I was talking about, there's not a cost involved to go in and talk to some of the advisors and meet with them, but for some of the programs, there's leveraged funding components. So for some of the programs where there is a service provided or some funding provided, there's often a leverage. So for example, if there's a program where, $20,000 is provided for a certain business service, then the entrepreneur may be asked to put up, say, 25%. So come up with $5,000 and then $15,000 will be provided. But to access the actual services themselves at the SPECs, the RICs, or the business advisory services, to sit down to talk to the entrepreneurs or the EIRs, no, there's no cost. It's about sort of having that introduction. And again, they may point on to other programs where there are leveraged ratios, but those initial consultations and the primary services are available at no cost.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then I will move on to the next presentation, which is also a shared effort between Susan and I, to speak about the youth jobs strategy and some of the youth programs that are currently available to be accessed by both employers and potential entrepreneurs. So just as a brief overview, I think that the importance of youth jobs in the current economy is sort of self-explanatory. The OECD Action Plan for Youth was issued last year, talking about the barriers and importance of youth unemployment and underemployment. Ontario benefits demographically from diversity, strong education system, digital connectedness, but measures to reduce barriers to employment can include work experience and skills development initiatives, as well as entrepreneurial supports to help leverage those strengths and create jobs as a result. This is the youth jobs strategy. It's a $295 million investment over 2 years to generate mentorship and job opportunities to 30,000 youth across the province. It's divided into 4 different streams under 2 clusters. So the first cluster there is youth employment, which is aimed at helping youth find jobs from traditional employers. And the bottom 2 in the lower cluster are youth entrepreneurship, which are about youth starting their own business. So I'll just take you through the first 3 really quickly before turning it over to Susan. So the Youth Employment Fund is aimed at helping individuals between the ages of 15 and 29 who are unemployed, not in school full-time, helping them connect with employers and get a job placement of 4 to 6 months. And the program is delivered through the existing network of Employment Ontario Employment Services. So that would be the entry point for a young person seeking employment through this program. For youth seeking jobs, it provides things like training, counseling tailored to the needs of the client. It provides some money to cover costs of things like transportation and tools to find jobs. And for employers, it can provide grants of up to $6,800 to offset training and wage costs linked with a job placement. And those incentives are also meant to support on-the-job training and to offset the risk of hiring youth employees with less experience. The relevant web link for this is ontario.ca/employment to the Employment Ontario website. Again, this is kind of a program aimed at connecting youth with existing employers. And the second part of that stream is the Youth Skills Connection. It's a program that supports partnerships amongst business, labor, educators, and not-for-profit organizations to help identify and solve skills development issues amongst a broad range of sectors, regions, and occupational groups. It's being delivered in 2 streams. One is the industry stream, which trains youth to respond to skills gaps identified by industry. And both of these streams are sort of based on applications from community groups that bring together different interests, industry, community, other community groups, educational institutions. And the community stream, which is a similar application process, trains vulnerable youth to build their capacity and their capability and to help find jobs, again, led by not-for-profit institutions. And the ministry website has details on this application process for community groups, which is still open. I think that what might be of more interest to this audience is the entrepreneurship stream, which is divided into 2 clusters. The Ontario Youth Entrepreneurship Fund has a range of components. I'll go through a couple of those. The high school outreach program is already launched. It provides funding to not-for-profit organizations, municipalities, Aboriginal communities, post-secondary institutions, and boards of education for a range of activities that set out to engage with students on entrepreneurship as a viable career option. Summer Company for young people looking to start their first company while they are still students provides up to $1,500 in upfront funding to help with startup costs and up to $1,500 when the entrepreneur successfully completes business requirements over the course of a summer. Similar to that is Starter Company, which I believe is for students no longer, or for young people no longer in school. It helps youth to launch Main Street businesses in their communities, provides them with guidance from small business enterprise centers, mentoring with local successful entrepreneurs, and access to workshops and other resources, as well as funding of up to $5,000. Still with the Youth Entrepreneurship Fund, strategic community entrepreneurship projects support youth facing multiple barriers to employment to gain the necessary skills to implement a self-employment venture or a small-scale business. It's being delivered by 16 partner organizations across the province who are providing entrepreneurship training, mentoring, business coaching, and funding of up to $3,000 to help young people start their business. The Youth Business Acceleration Program supports the development of technology companies. This is kind of where we pivot from Main Street to technology companies. Supports their development by young entrepreneurs. It is the youth counterpart of the Provincial Business Acceleration Program, which is part of the one, coordinated through MaRS and delivered through the Regional Innovation Centres. BAP equips Ontario's innovation entrepreneurs with the skills that they need to move successfully into the global marketplace through programs and services like entrepreneurship education, market intelligence services, mentorship, and funding for critical business development projects. And finally, on the on the Entrepreneurship Fund, we also have a Youth Investment Accelerator Fund, as I just talked about in the last presentation. This is a youth equivalent of IAF that supports the growth of innovative companies led by young entrepreneurs. Generally the same criteria as the full IAF, the only difference being that the majority of founders have to be under the age of 30, and that Youth IAF will invest up to $250,000 rather than the $500,000. However, companies that are successful and meet benchmarks may also be considered for an additional $250,000 of IAF funding to bring that total to $500,000, but through the youth stream, $250,000 to start. And on the Young Entrepreneur Seed Fund, I'll turn it over to Susan at this point.
That's our last switch off here. Okay, so just continuing on from where David left off, the Smart Start Seed Fund is a $9 million fund, and that is being managed by OCE. And this fund is really, again, on the innovation and technology side to help young entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 29 transition their startups from product development to market entry and company building. And it's going to enable those young entrepreneurs to access up to $35,000 of grant financing, $5,000 of which would be available for skills training, and up to $30,000 to help reach the early stage milestones for startups. And the $30,000 would need to have one-to-one matched funding through a variety of sources would be considered for that match. The only thing that would sort of be considered ineligible is other provincial funding. Again, we expect that there will be interest generated by this from the Campus Linked Accelerator program and some of the activities going on there, which I'm going to speak to in a moment. But this is open to all young technology-based entrepreneurs in the proper age range across the province, and it's an open application process. So it's not being done by a batch or a cohort. It's ongoing, and I believe it's open for business now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Innovation Fund. And as I say, the seed fund that I just mentioned is really a bridge between those entrepreneurship and innovation funds. The Innovation Fund has two programs, which are going to work in collaboration with post-secondary institutions, both universities and colleges across the province. And both of these programs are focused on experiential learning opportunities and helping transition the knowledge generated from universities and colleges into economic impact. So the first program under this fund is called the Talent Edge Internship Program, which is a $10 million program, and it's offering two levels of internship. One is for undergraduate and graduate students in both from both colleges or universities. And it's not just STEM focused, it's looking at creating opportunities for those students across all disciplines and bringing them into to work on 4-month internships with industry partners. These internships would have a value of $20,000 and, as I say, be for a 4-month duration. The other program under this, or the other stream under this program is the fellowship program, so supporting postdoctoral fellowships in R&D innovation management programs. These would be 1 or even up to 2-year fellowships, and they would represent sort of a value of an $85,000 internship. So we're really looking to try and get that knowledge from the universities and the colleges into industry and catalyzing that into economic impact while also offering the experiential learning opportunity. And again, this one is open for business and currently accepting applications, and it's managed through OCE. And finally, the campus-linked accelerator and on-campus entrepreneurship activities programs. This program is, again, working with the colleges and universities, and it's really working to establish world-class hubs of innovation and entrepreneurial activities, linking the campus resources to those of the entrepreneurial ecosystems. The CLA program is focused on expanding and scaling up activities that currently existed. So where there was already a significant amount of entrepreneurial activity in some college and university campuses, this was helping to build it, expand it, scale it, and bring it into line with global best practices. Through this program, we funded 10 separate programs across the province, which represent 14 institutions. So there's 3 different programs which involve more than one campus that is working collaboratively together. And those funding that funding decisions have only recently been made, so we're currently working through contracting with them, and the programs and services that are available through those are going to be available sort of in the near future and moving into September on those campuses. The OCE, or the on-campus entrepreneurial activities, is working to initiate and develop entrepreneurial activities where none existed before or where there was minimal activity before. So it's really helping to ignite and kickstart activity in campuses where they didn't have much going on previously. And together, these are really looking to build a pipeline of youth-led startups across the province that will be closely coordinated and linked to resources of the RICS and other ONE members. So, as I say, the decisions on the OCEAs are coming out imminently, and there will be also a second round for institutions to apply into that opening in May. So, again, all of these should be available, operational, sort of through the summer and into the fall, certainly. And that wraps up our youth job strategy and the sort of panoply of activities that are being made available. So are there any questions on any of those programs, again, for either David or myself? Yeah, the company, so the Talent Edge one will be a funding of $10,000 from OCE, and the company would be putting in $5,000, and I believe, sorry, maybe I'm getting that. Pardon me? 5 cash and 5,000 in kind from the company. Pardon me? The in-kind could be valued as, sort of the resources that they're making available, right? So whether it's the computers that are working on the labs, the what have you. So I'm not sure that there's a limit. I think that as I say, I think OCE will be working with companies, and actually I've heard them speaking and saying that if a company wants several, that they could look at and have discussions with OCE about doing some sort of batch level thing. Narinder here is probably more of an expert to answer some of those level questions. Yeah. We can't really comment on anything from the election side of things. From our standpoint, these are programs that have been introduced and are being implemented, so we don't anticipate any change going forward over the next month. We will continue to implement. Of course, as any new government comes in, then they'll be able to make their own decisions on what goes forward. No other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan and David. In terms of OCE programs, if anybody has direct questions for OCE, we have a little area set up by the front door where there are business development managers available that can answer questions about internships, Smart Start seed funding, and any of the other programs that are available to entrepreneurs and students. We have about 5 minutes before our next presentation, which will be by the Ontario Growth Capital Corporation and Brenda Hogan. So please. 5 more minutes. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you just joining us, I'm Brenda Hall, Vice President of Finance Programs and Administration at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our next Innovation Partner presentation from the Ontario Capital Growth Corporation. Here to present today is Brenda Hogan. Brenda is the Investment and Portfolio Manager at the Ontario Capital Growth Corporation, or OCGC. She will provide an overview of the funds OCGC manages, and in particular information on the Northleaf Venture Capitalist Fund. If you have any questions, there should be time at the end of the presentation for them.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the introduction. It's great to be back at the OC Discovery. The conference gets bigger and better every single year, and it's really inspiring to see all the great ideas around. As was mentioned, I'll provide an overview of what OCGC does, and I'll be available after the fact if you have specific questions around your particular situation. So just to get a sense of who's here today, is it mostly companies or academics or investors? How many companies? Okay, so mostly companies. Perfect, and welcome to everyone then. Let me just test the clicker. Excellent. So far, so good. So I'll give you an overview here of OCGC and some of the things that we do. So we were launched in 2009 as an agency of the Ministry of Research and Innovation. And like all agencies, we're arm's length, we have our own board, our own bylaws, and what have you. So for some of you, maybe it's easier to think of, everybody pretty much knows the LCBO. So that's the agency that deals with liquor. We're an agency. We don't deal with liquor, we deal with risk capital. So if you can kind of think of it as that, that's sort of how it works. So basically, we're mandated to do a few things at the moment. One is to look after the province's LP interest in the Ontario Venture Capital Fund, which is a $205 million fund of funds. We're one of 7 limited partners. The second thing is we manage a portfolio of 24 promising high-technology Ontario-based companies through a direct investment fund. And number 3 is a newer mandate that we've taken on as we look after the province of Ontario's limited partner interest in something called the Northleaf Venture Catalyst Fund, which is a new fund of funds recently launched, and I'll talk more about that later as that's our newer initiative. So the Ontario Emerging Technologies Fund is a co-investment fund that was launched in 2009. The focus of that fund is ICT, digital media, and life sciences, clean tech, so the traditional sort of venture-backed type of companies. And since launching at that time, we've invested in 27 companies and committed in the order of $80 million. And when we invest in those companies, we did so with the notion that we would be there for follow-on. So in other words, we go in as part of a syndicate and we follow a lead investor for the first investment. And then when that lead investor does a follow-on, all things equal, we'll be there. And I'm quite delighted to say that we've kept to our word, and we're in the second, third, and in some cases, fourth follow-on investment in a number of the companies. And I think a good example of the impact that this fund has had in the marketplace, and I'll give you one example, I could give you more, but let's just focus on one because we only have a few minutes today, is Exogenic. Now, Exogenic is a molecular diagnostics company that was spun out. It's basically a lab-free molecular diagnostic. And so where this would come in handy in practical terms is, let's say you have some sort of an outbreak. Well, within 20 minutes, you could actually diagnose. And it was a University of Toronto spin-out. And in 2012, OETF invested alongside Life Sciences VC fund, CTI Life Sciences. We were in a $10 million round with them. And then subsequent to that, the company was able to achieve some milestones, some growth, and as a result of that, they were able to attract the attention back in 2013, last year, of Domain Associates. Now, Domain Associates is a $2.7 billion U.S. life sciences fund, and Domain came in to participate in a round of $20 million into Exogenic. So that was a significant boost for that company. So that's an example of one of the ways that the OCGC has played a role in terms of the marketplace. And here are some companies that have been impacted by the fund. And you'll see they're everything from life sciences to clean tech to ICT. And they're all over Ontario from sort of east to west, north to south. The other thing we tend to get involved in, I'll touch on a little bit because we have found companies ask us about this, so I thought I'd have a slide around it, is it's around corporate venture capital. And what we find, and you may have noticed this too, is that the corporations are not doing R&D in-house like they used to for many reasons. One is they find it quite expensive, it's quite time-consuming, there's risk, you never really know what's going to come out of it, it's time to market, it's expertise. And having worked for a big company myself, you know, when you're that large, sometimes it's really hard to get those ideas bubbling to the top. And so these companies, they have venture capital arms, and they're interested in sort of what's new and what's next, and they want a window on the technology. And so typically what they'll do is they'll take an equity piece, perhaps a minority, maybe 5%, something like that. And if they really like it, they'll take more. And if they really, really like it, then they'll end up bringing the product through their distribution channels and what have you. And so the reason I mention that is because we work with a lot of them who are coming in, whether it's auto, whether it's telco, whether it's consumer goods or what have you, and help introduce those to Ontario companies to put them on the radar screen. And those are some of the companies that we work with. So it's all around, identifying what is it they're looking for in terms of the technologies, and then reaching out to the network we have from the investment community, the VCs, the angels, the One Network, and putting some companies in front of them to help drive the business for them. We have found it to be a win-win situation because you either get an investment stake in a company, or you get access to channels, or you get access to interesting product ideas. The third thing that we get involved in is called the Ontario Venture Capital Fund, and that's a fund of funds. And $205 million fund. It's professionally managed by Northleaf Capital Partners, which is a spin-out of TD Capital. All of the limited partners in that fund collectively chose Northleaf. And the province of Ontario put $90 million in, and then other private sector investors came to the table that brought up to $205 million. And so the question may be, well, for the $90 million, what do we have to show for it? Well, we actually levered $970 million in private capital as a result. And now that model is recognized nationally as a good way to support venture-backed companies. In terms of the impact, to summarize on this, Ontario-based companies in the OVCF portfolio recorded about $240 million in revenue, $50 million in research and development, and employed over 1,600 people. And maybe I'll give you one example of the impact OVCF has had. So if you look at Shopify, I think many of you have probably heard this company. It's been in the press a little bit. I guess when you get a $1 billion valuation, people start to look at you. So back in back in 2013, I think it was, somewhere around there, give or take, I guess it was 2011, OVCF invested in a relatively new fund called Georgian Partners. Well, Georgian Partners went on to invest in Shopify in a $15 million round. And then you kind of spring forward a couple of years, and this past fall, we have the Cyber Monday, Black Friday, the big shopping day, and all that stuff. Well, Shopify actually sold over 100 million products, and in fact, it had more traffic than Walmart and Best Buy and Tesla and some of the other big players out there, so it shows sort of where they play in the market. Now, a few months later, Shopify ended up closing a $100 million round with marquee U.S. investment venture capital fund, Bessemer Venture Partners. So again, if you've traced back, a lot of things had to go right for Shopify, and having the capital at the right time was pretty critical. The other thing I want to mention is that from 2010 to 2013, OVCF actually accounted for 1/3 of all the venture capital here in Ontario. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and now I'll bring you up to speed on what's new. Oh, those are some of the funds invested in through OVCF. And so it's everything from XPV, which is in clean tech, to Lumiere Capital and life sciences, and then Relay Ventures in the mobile space. So it really runs the gamut. Just a pictorial representation. Nuterra in the water space as well. Shop Locket, that's an interesting one. She sold that a few months ago, so that was a nice exit there. Then the new venture capital fund I'll speak of here. So in February, or in around there, the federal government in 2013 announced a $400 million venture capital action plan. And it had 4 components, but for the purposes of today, I'll sort of focus on one. one of the components was to be 2 separate $50 million investments of federal money into 2 provincial fund-of-funds modeled after the Ontario Venture Capital Fund, OVCF, about which I just spoke. And then subsequent to that, Ontario announced that they too would be participating in the fund up to $50 million. So at this point, maybe what I should do is summarize a little bit how fund-to-fund works for those who may not be so familiar. So basically, what happens is you've got limited partners who pool their resources. So this could be pension funds, it could be corporate investors, could be the banks, and what have you. They pool their money into what's called a fund of funds. Then they choose a general partner, which basically makes the day-to-day investment decisions. Then that general partner then invests in the underlying venture capital funds, which is number 3 there. And then the venture capital funds then invest in the underlying portfolio companies, which is what you see as number 4 there. So that's sort of basically what the structure is. And so the principles and strategy of what I'll call NVCF is very similar to OVCF. And the idea is that it was designed to act as a catalyst in the marketplace to promote a vibrant venture capital environment, to work to attract the confidence of institutional investors to the asset class, attract a top quartile fund manager to manage the fund, which we as LPs believe Northleaf Capital is. And the idea was to delegate investment decisions to Northleaf so that all the decisions made in terms of what to invest in would truly be market-based decisions and returns-based. Because as you can probably appreciate, if a VC fund is properly capitalized, then it's better able to back globally competitive Canadian companies, Ontario companies. And if you strengthen the ability of the country's venture capital sector to support innovative, high-growth Canadian companies by providing increased access to capital and support, they get the expertise they need. And again, it's also about focusing on maximizing the returns. And the reason that's important is that by doing so, this contributes to the development of profitable, globally competitive, and self-sustaining venture capital industry in Canada, which then is there to support the high potential companies which you all, many of you here would be representing. So on this slide, we can see the partners who have come into this fund with us. So OpenText is a corporate investor, the chartered banks in Canada, BDC, CPPIB, the pension fund. And the idea is that they'll be investing in high potential funds across Canada. So in terms of where we are now with NVCF, we had an initial close in January 2014 of around 217, 218 million. 145 was from institutional investors, which you saw on the prior slide. 36.5 million from each of Ontario and the federal government. And so the bottom line, really, if I were you sitting here, well, what does that mean for companies? Like, what's in it for me? Well, I think it's best summarized that for companies raising money, there's now more doors to go through. So the idea is that NVCF, as it starts to get deployed in the marketplace, you'll have more funds who are better capitalized, because if you're a company, and I used to work for a software company myself, so you get some investors around the table and they say, yeah, we're in for the first round. Well, that's great. Well, what happens 2 years from now when you need them to cut another check? Are they run away because they have no cash left, or are they well capitalized and they say, yeah, we're in for the next round that can get to that next milestone, that gets you that good valuation, that gets you that great exit, or builds the billion-dollar company, whichever you have in mind. And that's really what that's about. And I guess the other thing to point out in terms of the other potential impact we have here is that it's about building, a good foundation from a venture capital perspective here. It's about building the next foundation. It's about building really the next level of venture capital managers in the ecosystem, because we all know, any of us who've been with companies before, how critical it is to have those VCs out there, have them well capitalized, and have them knowledgeable and experienced enough to have a conversation and at the end of the day to write that check for us. So in terms of where we are today after having this launched in January, so the Northleaf Venture Catalyst Fund has made 3 investments to date. Georgian Partners Fund, this was a first-time fund a few years ago. They're now on their second fund due to their great success. They focus on investments in the expansion stage enterprise software area. Second fund that's been invested in is XPV Water, and if you know Dave Henderson, very deep domain expertise in the water technology sector. And then the fund, MVCF, has a small allocation for direct investing. And Wattpad is the investment they've made there. It's a social publishing company and actually the world's largest community for discovering and sharing stories. So in closing, this has been a high-level overview of the Ontario Capital Growth Corporation, and as noted, I'll be available outside the room to discuss specific questions you may have, but the door is always open because we deal with angels, because we deal with investors, because we deal with corporates, and because we deal with companies. We often hear a lot what's going on in the marketplace, and anything we can do to introduce you to the people you need to be introduced to get the job done, we're more than glad to do so, so don't hesitate to give me a call. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for your presentation. The next presentation will be in about 5 minutes from a company near and dear to my heart, OCE. Hello, everyone. I'm Narendra Hall from the Ontario Centers of Excellence. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next Innovation Partner presentation. Here to present is Bob Sivak, who is the Senior Vice President of Business Development Operations at OCE. As you may know, OCE drives the development of Ontario's economy by helping create new jobs, products and services, technologies and businesses. In partnership with industry, OCE co-invests to commercialize innovation originating in the province's publicly funded colleges, universities, and research hospitals. If you have any questions, I'm sure there'll be an opportunity at the end of the presentation to ask questions. Thank you. Bob.
Hi, good afternoon. We've got a small crowd here, so we can be very informal about this, and I'll try to go through the presentation and maybe have some time for some Q&A. If there's anything specific on your mind, so I think it'll be a lot easier with a small crowd. Sometimes we do this and it's full house and it's harder to do that. So anyway, I get to do this almost every year, and this year is one of the most dramatic changes at OCE in terms of volume of new programs added. So you're going to see that as I go forward with this. So I'm going to rush through some of the basics and get to some of the substance as we go forward, okay? So just a definition, OCE's been around since 1987. You're seeing, if those of you who were at the big presentations, you got a kind of a snapshot of what OCE is all about. But we fundamentally started as an industry, as an academic funding source to encourage academe to do research in industry relevant areas. And so we've come a long way from that simple mandate to what I'm about to show you going forward. What do we do? There's some common themes on here, so rather than present this busy slide, I'm just going to draw your attention to some basics, okay? You'll notice the phrase, create new jobs. You can get lost. That new job creation model can get lost in everything else we do, but fundamental and lying in there, not in behind, but right up front, is that fundamental objective. You'll see the word leverage twice on 2 different points. So we always look for leverage opportunities with our partners. This partner forum here, you're hearing presentations from the various entities that we have partnership with. And because of that, we're able to lever and maximize the use of funds to support innovation as we go forward. See the word programs there. Basically, when I meet somebody off the street and they talk about OCE, and they say, well, what do you do? Fundamentally, we have programs. We have a variety of programs available. Sometimes it makes things a little complicated because if you want to do something simple, we'll have to find you in a program. That's the bad news. The good news is we have such a wide variety of programs, it's usually not that difficult to slot into something that's relevant for either an academic researcher or for a company, be you a SME, a large enterprise, or a startup. And finally, on the bottom there, and I'm going to focus more on that, you'll see the word entrepreneur. So you'll see that as a theme here, and that's probably one of the biggest, it's more than a trend, it's actually a phenomenon, and I'll explain more as I go forward here, okay. The wrong slide up myself, but one of the things that we do, and I never know where to put this slide when I do this talk, is one of the things unique to OCE is utilization of a business development field force. We have a face-to-face I have the privilege, as it being responsible for the operations, of having to run that team, support that team that runs across the province. Basically, I'm not even sure what it says on that slide that much, but I'll tell you the simple way of putting it is our business development managers are like interpreters, speaking two languages, the language of academic and research and the language of business and industry. And the idea is to try to put things together by a thorough understanding of those two dialects or dialogues or languages. And by being experts at doing that, hopefully at some point they can make magic happen by putting together the right types of partnerships. I could look at OCE programs as three buckets, if you want to think of it that way. There's an industry academic partnership bucket, which is our kind of our traditional bucket of connecting industry to academic resources with the idea of solving problems or resolving or exploring possibilities, be it research orientated or be it problem solving orientated. We have a separate bucket that I still call commercialization, but what's happening is commercialization is starting to merge with the entrepreneurship bucket. We keep them kind of separate for now, but it's really hard to say where one starts and one leaves off. As a matter of fact, I could even argue that commercialization goes back into our industry academic partnership bucket because nothing really happens in terms of industry academic partnerships unless there's some kind of a commercial objective at the end of the day. I'm going to get more into some of these programs. You can see I spoke to programs. I'm not going to be able to cover them all, but you can see there's quite a wide variety. I'm going to highlight a few things and then steer you towards our website or our BDs or other sources to get details on programs, or perhaps I can answer a quick question as we go forward. Okay, some highlights, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about these things, like our collaborative voucher program, some of our cross-provincial partnership activities, which are designed to increase that leverage that I talked about before, and also to expand the potential benefits to Ontario by looking outside. Our new talent and entrepreneurial programs, which are basically the highlight of what we're doing these days in terms of what's there. A little bit about our high-performance computing or big data stuff, and just a small touch on connected vehicles. So let's get going on that. Last year, at this very forum, I introduced our voucher program. So the vouchers are no longer new. So, but for those of you who wonder how it all works, well, the voucher is something that you get via a successful application that allows you to redeem for services at academic institutions, if you want to think of it that way. If you're from an academic institution, you're probably not thinking of it that way. What you're thinking of is it's basically a different way of getting a budget for me. So there's 2 or 3 ways to do it. Yes, there's a little bit of marketing and there's a little bit of, but you know what? I'll tell you, looking back on it, when we launched it, looking where we are right now, it's actually helped in the sense of it's very easy to explain to an industrial partner what it is that they can get from a successful program or partnering with an academic institution. And I think it's kind of also a well understood concept because that terminology voucher is used across North America and in other parts of the globe as well. So I think by doing that, we're into best practice methods, and the program has been very successful. I would say that it's been a simple transformation, and we do very well, and we basically sell this program out if you want to refer to a restricted budget as something that you sell out. But that's a good thing for Ontario, and it's a good thing for us. They kind of go in sequence. The VIP 1 is I'm going to call it the engine of our industry academic outreach, because it's very quick, not that expensive, very fast, nimble process to initiate or to expand an existing relationship at an academic institution with an industrial partner. These are designed, there's no restrictions. You can be a mega corporation and get one of these, and you can be a startup and get one of these. A lot of the activity has gone the startup route for all the other action that you're seeing in the startup world. and because there's a lot of startup activity that's utilizing the academic resources. That being said, when we have one of these with a larger scale company, we have higher expectations for future investments from them, for that matter. You can go up the chain to a VIP 2, which is just a larger scale a voucher and a more complex program. If you combine this VIP 2 with our Talent Edge, which I'm going to talk about, an internship program, theoretically an academic, if there's an academic sitting in the crowd, you could lever up a $500,000 research project by using this. Even so, don't be fooled by the up to 75,000 there, because that's just for stuff that's not related to graduate student support, which could all be supported by the Talent Edge budget. So more on that as we go forward. The e-voucher is primarily carried for us by our friends at our colleges, and that's helping small companies and medium companies with e-commerce opportunities. And it's a smaller dollar program, but very, very important. It's delivered some tremendous results, and we're continuing into next year. Industry association is a larger scale, $500,000, $1 million type opportunities, sectorally based, ran through associations. So we do that, we did it as a pilot last year, and we're continuing to roll it out as a full program. We did it as a call for proposals. The call is almost closed now, but we'll be following up with all the associations that responded, and once we develop a program, it'll be announced and developed and available for all partners across the province to participate in. Talent Edge, you heard me make a reference to Talent Edge. Talent Edge is an internship program. I think you've heard some other references to it. It's a $10 million program where we're going to fund some 300 internships across the province. These can be utilized by startups, they can be utilized by SMEs, they can be utilized by larger scale companies. These projects are very, very flexible in nature. They can occur at a university lab, they can occur at a site, at the company site. They're not meant to be specifically employment, so if you've got a startup company and you want an intern, that intern is not to be confused with somebody that you want to hire, although that's very close, but you must define a project. So I don't think it would be hard for any tech company to be able to define a project. So if you have any questions on how to do that, connect with your OCE BD rep or talk to your academic, your favorite academic, or even the students themselves will tell you how to piece these things together. The fellowship program is for postdoctoral fellows. This could be these are larger dollar. These are very much closer to what you would want to do to hire a postdoc. So if you're any kind of company that is contemplating either hiring or acquiring somebody at the PhD level, you should explore the possibilities of full utilization of a fellowship program because it will really help either acquire or relieve some of the costs associated with that. These programs are live as we speak, live and available on the OCE website. Take questions in a minute. Let me get through these, and we'll have plenty of time. Okay. Campus-linked accelerator. So I said that entrepreneurship, by the way, student entrepreneurship, more than a trend. It's a phenomena that's happening out there. Remember the buckets I showed you, where I showed you industry academic partnerships and then the other stuff that was in there? The money that's going into entrepreneurship is equal to all of that other program combined. So that's a fairly significant investment. It's literally double the size of the OCE annual operating budget for programs, okay? So it's significant. So what you're seeing is more than just a trend. It is not just a trend. What you're seeing with youth entrepreneurship out there on the show floor and in our speeches, in our talks, and in our programs is not just a one-time phenomenon. It's a significant investment being made by the province through OCE most of it as part of the youth entrepreneurship and youth job creation strategy programs. So we've campus-linked accelerators are big dollar, $2-3 million awards across about a dozen of these, involving some 15 institutions, because some are partnerships across the province. And I think what's going to happen here, and if you're from a university, you probably know about this. If you're not, you're wondering, well, why do I care? You're going to care because this is going to produce a lot. This is something that's going to maybe change the landscape. Maybe it's too bold to say change the landscape of the province we're living in, but I've been at this a long time. I've never seen anything on this scale happen in Ontario. So this is a very exciting opportunity, and I encourage people who are a part of the scene to become involved locally and understand where this is occurring in your region. Not to be outdone, we have a smaller program to encourage entrepreneurships, because not all the institutions or colleges are at the scale where they could take that type of investment. So we have a smaller dollar program where you can get up to $200,000 for what we call campus entrepreneurial opportunities. So this will potentially do two things. One, it'll seed the growth of entrepreneurship at institutions that are just getting going at it. And two, it'll also provide opportunities for entrepreneurs at those institutions. So we're very excited about these programs, and these have just been awarded and launched. So there's going to be very, very few at the end of the year institutions who are not receiving some type of entrepreneurial support from these two programs. Backing all of that up is a $9 million seed fund to support all of the startups that are coming out of there. So it's a little bit of an engine when you look at it. There's programs to get things started, and there's programs to carry it on. And from there, we're hoping that some of the marketplace and the private equity investment would help lever even more. This, by the way, if you're going to ask me the question, I'll answer one right now, which is who's eligible for this? This is you should be under the age of 30, right? That's the target. Now, if you're over the age of 30 and you have others who are part of the team that are under 30, that's okay too. If you have any questions or queries, just get in touch with us and we'll review the details instead of getting into these. Like if you're under 30 and you're on a ship and you're just about to cross the international date line on your birthday, would you still be eligible if you got your application in or not? Well, that depends on what media you sent your application in on, I guess would be my answer, but that sort of thing. Hey, that was it. Am I on time? I'm good, says the, do we have time for questions? I got time for some questions. I must have answered the one guy who had the question. It was probably about how old you have to be eligible, is my guess. So, yes, Steve. Yeah, metrics. Well, metrics are related to the creation of a startup. Then it's how many are employed in the startup, and it's does the startup receive any investment capital. Now, by definition, it's got matching funds, because I probably didn't mention that, but you have to have matching funds to get the seed fund. So that's part of the metrics. And then there's broader metrics for the CLAs, because there's a whole component of the CLA that goes beyond just the startup. It has to do with how many our students are exposed to entrepreneurship. And those metrics get a little bit more, not fuzzy, but they get more statistical in nature in terms of how many people have attended courses and events and how many are participating and at what level they're engaged and involved and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's part of the whole idea. Actually, it's quite a. If there's anything that's controversial about the whole thing, it's to me it would be how much time are you spending on the startup and how much time are you spending trying to improve your grades, and does it even matter? It's a really. I mean, we could have a whole discussion on that, but it's hard to say. I always liken it to students play varsity sports too, and could be extracurricular or it could be career. It's a very complicated issue, but we're going there anyway, and we need leaders like yourself to try to guide these students. Yes, sir. That's a good question. The question was, how secure is our funding given the situation of the political announcements in the pending election? Luckily, everything that I've just told you was approved in the previous budget by the Liberals. That was approved, and it's all been approved, launched, and our money's in the bank. And so none of these programs will be held up because of the election. Thank the Lord. Don't quote me on that. Actually, I can say that because there's no politicians here because of the election. Anyway, the camera's running now they catch me on a camera, right? No, the programs are good, so we're in good shape, thank goodness, with the entire budget that I told you. Sir.
Your three buckets, you outlined about 25, 30 programs.
Yeah.
The OCE has a decent budget, but it's not a huge budget. Aren't you concerned about spreading that money a little bit too thin over a lot of different activity areas as opposed to focus?
Yeah, the question was, am I concerned about spreading the budget over too thin because of the large number of programs? Well, I'll answer that in two ways. First of all, it looks worse than it is, Mark, really does, because a lot of the programs are interrelated. So, and I've repeated them because we have intake and forms that are different. Because so for example, when I say there's a VIP 1, a VIP 2, and the vouchers, for example, I could just say there's just a voucher, an innovation and productivity voucher. When I say there's a market readiness, a 1, a 2, and a 3, I could just say there's just market readiness. I just, we differentiate, and maybe the way we advertise ourselves, we do ourselves a disservice by showing so many program buckets, and we do it just to help stakeholders and applicants navigate quicker to get to zero in on a separate program. But you raise a good point. Am I personally worried about it? Yes. I mean, I think we're at the initiation stage on the entrepreneurial stuff, and we're going to create a whole lot of activity at a very small level of student entrepreneurship. What will we do to follow that up is unclear at this point in time. I would hope that we deliver successes and we can add and consolidate, and we're always looking to improve and efficient. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Great. If you have any more questions, I'm back there if you can find me. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bob, for your presentation. Just to keep us on schedule, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our next Innovation Partner presentation from the MaRS Discovery District. Usha Srinivasan, and she is Vice President of Learning and Insights. At MaRS, Usha leads a team through a range of diverse programs, including the Business Acceleration Program, Data Catalyst, and Studio Y. Together, they provide advisory services and leadership training, connect entrepreneurs with program funding, help leverage open data, and work to make online and on-site educational content accessible through regional innovation centers across the province. If you have any questions, Usha will be available to answer them at the end of the presentation. Please welcome Usha.
Thank you. It's the end of the day, so I'm going to be trying to be quick. And if you have other questions, of course, I can answer them. So before I go into the specific slides, I know my title there, it says presentation is about MaRS. There are many programs within MaRS, and if you're not familiar with us, we are a regional innovation center here in Toronto. We're located at college and university. People see our building and they think of us as an incubator space, but there are many other layers to MaRS, and I will not be able to cover all of the layers of MaRS in 15 minutes. So I am going to concentrate on this particular program, which is most relevant to startups. And so this is one of the provincial programs we run that I oversee at MaRS, and that I run there. So what is this business acceleration program? So this is actually the fourth iteration of this program, and each year, each time has been a 4-year tranche of the funding from the Ministry of Research and Innovation. Essentially, it provides a network of centralized and regional services to our Ontario network of entrepreneurs. This is really an attempt for the ministry to streamline the things that we offer to our entrepreneurs and not repeat the services at multiple levels in different regional innovation centers. It consists of, and Bob talked about the universities and colleges, and we will be extending these services to those institutions as well, so that we're not replicating and duplicating some of the things that we're doing. So essentially, these are the 4 buckets of the types of services, and I'll go into each of them. Essentially, at the Regional Innovation Center, we provide some programming that's advisory services. There's mentors and advisors that work with clients and startups. MaRS itself is a regional innovation center, and there's 16 other ones. And then we run province-wide funding competitions, and I'll elaborate what they are. And then the 2 green ones are the central programs that we run from MaRS for the whole province. So they fall into educational programming, entrepreneurship education programming, and the market intelligence services. Okay, so I'll just go into each one of these in more detail. Before that, who can access and who is it? Who is eligible to access these services? Essentially, it's open to all Ontario entrepreneurs. We expect that the entrepreneur is located in Ontario, doing business in Ontario. They are typically less than $1 million in revenues or pre-revenue kind of companies that we deal with. And they have less than $2 million in private investment. We do not penalize companies for any kind of government grants, et cetera, that they have, because we know that a lot of our technology or IP-intensive companies are, getting government grants for running their companies, and developing their technology. So we don't penalize for that. But essentially, the large buckets really are: if you're a student entrepreneur and you're working with any kind of entrepreneurship-related programming in your university, or you are in an incubator or an accelerator, yes, you can access our programs, but through your particular center, whether it's a Velocity in Waterloo or a Next 36 kind of thing, a program in U of T, you may recognize some of these programs, but it's extended to more than that. Because through the CLA programming that Bob talked about, 10 of the institutions have received the CLA funding, and therefore it covers all of those entrepreneurs, student entrepreneurs in those CLAs. Researcher entrepreneurs, obviously there are professors, researchers who are doing technology development. Some of them want to commercialize, and they're working with their tech transfer offices. They are also eligible for the services, and they connect with us. And of course, and the other startups who are not part of the academic ecosystem, of course, work with the entire Regional Innovation Center ecosystem. The companies that we don't typically have the right resources for are the Main Street entrepreneurs, I would say. If they're a retail business, or you have a services business on financial services, things like that, we tend to not have the right advisors or the resources for them, and we refer them to our sister organization here in Toronto, Enterprise Toronto, for example, or many of the other regional innovation centers actually co-locate with some of the small business enterprise centers. I'm sorry, I realize I have too many acronyms, typical government PowerPoint with too many acronyms. SBEC is small business enterprise centers that are located in near regional innovation centers across the province as well. That's where we refer the Main Street entrepreneurs to. So the first bucket of advisory services. So there are 17 regional innovation centers. Hopefully you can see that. You can actually see this on the onebusiness.ca website as well. We have all the way from Windsor to Ottawa to all the way up to Thunder Bay. We have our capacity across, and each of these centers worked with almost 4,000 technology ventures just in the past year alone. And many of them are, and you can see this, the kind of the industry breakdown. Quite a lot of the firms across the province tend to be in the ICT, digital media kind of space, software, hardware, mobile web kind of thing, so 57%. The other is divided between the life sciences with the next highest number, and then by clean tech and advanced materials and so on, and other industries. So this, it's funnily enough, this is the typical split that we see in almost all the regional innovation centers with little nuances, differences. I always say it's obviously easier to come up with a web mobile company than a medical device or a therapeutic compound, and therefore the split is the way it is, so it's not a surprise. As you can also see on the left-hand corner, the firm size, 69% of the firms are early stage firms that we work with, so they're pre-revenue. These are small startups with 1 or 2 people in the company. And then the other 70% of those, of these early stage ones, are in the ideation discovery stage. They're just thinking, have an idea, they haven't figured out what the business model is going to be, what their revenue model is going to be. They're just at the early stages. So that tends to be the general split. And roughly, this is kind of the number of companies each of the regional innovation centers are working in. Communitech, MaRS, and Venture Lab, Tech Alliance, these are all some, and Invest Ottawa, these are some high-performing regional innovation centers. There are quite a lot of volume of companies working with them, and others are new to the ecosystem and they're just catching up and working with a lot of companies. But generally, this is the split in the ecosystem. But we work really closely with each other and connect with each other on the program side, and also the sharing of advisors and so on. The next bucket, if you see the different balls that I had, so this is the funding program. This is one of the competitions that we run every year, the Embedded Executive Program. So I have a little bit of a highlight on what we've done this past year, and we do this every year. Maybe not in the same budget amount, but we were able to do, for $1.5 million, we were able to fund 30 high potential ventures. This program is $50,000 for a C-level executive placement in a startup. It is highly competitive. We had 126 applications this past year from all across Ontario. The criteria is you must work with a regional innovation center so that you have an advisor who's coaching you and guiding you and so on. And because they have to provide some internal review as well, and there are other external reviewers. So literally there are 4 different reviewers that look at the application. The kind of industry sectors that breakdown that we had was very similar to the breakdown that I showed you before for the RICS, more of the ICT, some clean tech, and in life sciences. We would love to do more, but this is what we were able to do with the money that we were given. But $15K cash contribution comes from the company, and then $50,000 is given by us. And we have milestone achievements for the C-level individual is for 6 months placement. Many of the ones that we have invested in the past continue to stay with the company and taken on full-time roles. So we really do think it's a much needed person that has come on into the company and has continued to stay on with the company after a couple of years. So the ecosystem has responded to us that they love this program and they want to continue us. So hopefully we'll do another round. So we go from April to March timeframe. So there'll be another round in October that we will be announcing. So if you are interested in that, work with your regional innovation center in your region, wherever you might be, Toronto or Waterloo or Ottawa, and connect with them and find out about the program more. These are the last 2 are the educational programming and the market intelligence services. Now, we have spent a lot of time over the past 6 years, I would say, slowly gathering various types of resources that entrepreneurs might find helpful. And the work is never done because this space is a very dynamic space and there's lots of new models and new ways of innovating your business models and so on. So we keep adding to it. We know that entrepreneurs learn in different ways. Some of you like to listen, like now. Others like to just go in your own quiet space and look at your online content and download things and want to work on things. Others learn from peers in workshop kind of style. So therefore, we have different types of things to help you learn. So we have events, online content, and workshops. So the events are various types of events, and I'll go through a few different ones. At MaRS, we have our flagship Entrepreneurship 101 that we run every year from September to May. And these are live webcasts, so anyone can really participate. We have actually satellite centers all across Ontario where people come together and listen to the lecture and then have an active discussion afterwards. So we run them in Hamilton, Norcat, in Sudbury, in Ottawa, and a few other, in Haltech and Halton, and a few other places. We have 400 people come to our building, listening to the lectures, but we have 100 more on the online side. So take advantage of it if you think that's something that this is really for early stage entrepreneurs who are just thinking about entrepreneurship. This is not someone who's already decided they want to be an entrepreneur. So this is a light touch just to see what you want to, if you want to do that. There are other programming that's just a little more in depth, like the best practices, which is more, it might be about IP, it might be about HR, about finance, it might be more deep subject matters. We run them as lunch and learns. These are all free content that anyone can come and take advantage of. The market insight events are industry specific events that we run every quarter. The global leadership that we have at least 4 every quarter. We have at least 4 of those, like international speakers that end up coming to our facility. So these are just on-site events that you would like to maybe take advantage of. Last but not least, I should talk about future leaders, because there's a lot of focus on youth entrepreneurship here today at OCE. We run during March break and summer break a future leaders boot camp for young entrepreneurs from 13 to 18-year-olds for them to come in, learn about entrepreneurship. They come up with an idea and learn how to commercialize in 1 week. It's quite phenomenal to see what they can come up with. But if you have children and you're interested, please look out for that on our website if you want to send them have that experience. So this is the Entrepreneurship 101 that I talked about. So we have had. So the Upstart competition is actually happening this Wednesday. So out of the 30 lecture series, out of the Entrepreneurship 101, if they attend 20 of the lecture series, they can apply for an Upstart business competition. I think we had over 56 applicants this time. But essentially at the end of that, there's a pitch competition and a $15,000 prize, and that's happening this Wednesday at the MaRS building if at all you're interested to attend. Just giving you success by numbers, I guess, in some ways. We have over 223 educational events that we've run just last year, almost 16,000 attendees, and 24,000 hours of actual educational content. Now, we talked about the events. This is all online. So the Entrepreneurship Toolkit, we're very mindful of the fact that entrepreneurs like bite-sized, small pieces. We don't want long videos or long articles. So these are inspirational videos, small bite-sized information on critical things that they need as they grow their businesses. And this is all lives in our MaRS library. You can search and find and extract these things and use them. There are workbooks that you can use to actually do a business model type of work. We use the principles of Steve Blank's Lean Startup Methodology and the Business Model Canvas from Alex Oskewalder, so much of our content is around that. So we have had we hit a 2 million unique page views on our website as of a couple of months ago, which is, I think for just starting out for few years, that's a good number for us. And also 450,000 video views as well. So we want to continue to perfect, continue to improve. Like I said, our work is never done. We want to make sure entrepreneurs get the best information in our province. Funnily enough, other provinces are also very interested in what Ontario is doing. You may not know that the kind of innovation ecosystem this province has created with the regional innovation centers and now with the institutional investment as well is very unique in the country. Lots of other provinces are looking at us and thinking, how did these guys figure this out, and how are the services working? And so we do have pilot services in a couple of other provinces to. I see that one of our funders is in the audience, and I'm not saying it because of that, but it check point. But it is true that they're looking at us and thinking that, hey, we want to emulate this, or actually they have links to some of our content on their websites to just make use of it, so they're not reinventing the wheel. So we had the events, the online content, and then these are the hands-on workshops. Now, entrepreneurs learn from peers much better sometimes, and especially if they're from other industries and they're working together. These are these workshops are delivered across the province in all of the regional innovation centers. There are about 5 modules. It starts from, everything to defining your value proposition, then building your business, then marketing communications, and then B2B sales process, and then finally pitching to our investors. These typically are 2-day, 4-hour each kind of workshops. Some of them are 3 days. What I mean by that is, week 1 you would come in, spend 4 hours. Then week 2 you would come in, spend another 4 hours. Because I saw people kind of doing that, and I'm thinking, okay, I have to explain what that means. And then week 3, another 4 hours. But then there's homework in between. But then you're working in a group of 20, and you're working with each other, sharing ideas, is very hands-on. So you're building your business plan as you're going through that process. So we find our clients get a lot of value out of this. It's by working on this together. We've delivered almost 186 workshops this past year across the province to almost 600 companies. So if you are interested in that kind of hands-on learning, again, it's free of cost for our entrepreneurs in the province. We actually just take a $100 deposit from the entrepreneur just to make sure you show up. And then we give the money back to you. We just want to make sure that at least if you don't show up, we'll keep the $100. This is just to make sure that you're serious about it and come to the workshop. But it seems to work really well for us. So please connect with your Regional Innovation Center if you're interested in that. The last is the Market Intelligence Services. Now, this is actually a pretty unique service in the province, and we haven't found an equivalent one in any other parts of the country. And we actually have a pilot program in New Brunswick at the moment. So essentially what this program does is, again, the criteria of clients is the same, less than $1 million in revenues and less than $2 million in private capital raised. I have a group of 11 analysts who have different expertise, from ICT to life sciences to clean tech including energy, materials, etc. And these analysts, because they have expertise, they know where industry information lies, both in the public domain, and also what we have access to is these premium market research databases. Now, these are expensive databases. Entrepreneurs don't have the money to buy the information from these databases. Knowing that, what we did is we developed relationship with each of these vendors. Our pitch to them was, you know what, entrepreneurs don't have money. They're not going to be able to buy these reports from you. Why don't you let us be the conduit? We'll give it to them free. We're paying for the services. We're not for profit. But we're marketing the product indirectly to them, and when they are, big enough, they'll be able to come back and they'll be hooked on your product and they'll want to buy it from you. And that pitch seems to have worked. And we started with 2, and now we have 22 different databases. Now, if you're a startup, some of the things, annoying questions that keep you awake at night, like, I don't know if there's other competing technologies out there. How big is my market size? If you are doing a target market or your total addressable market calculations, you want some reference point, some information to look at. These reports, they've already done the work for you in some of those spaces. These analysts are, they have a lot more time than you and I to just focus on one thing, and they have mapped out the energy storage space or the medical device space or whatever the market might be, and they've told you they've written about the competitors there, the market size there. So why not take advantage of it? It's a starting point before, rather than going blind. And last but not least, the analyst team also understands that so much of the information is in the public domain, whether it's in StatScan or other Conference Board of Canada or many other public resources. So we have a curated list of public domain resources in our startup library. You can find it in our MaRS library website. You can search it up. Again, it's free. It'll save you some time, or basically spend less time surfing and more time doing the work that you need to do. Feel free to access it and use it as best as you can. And because the team, the Market Insight Intelligence team, has been working with thousands of entrepreneurs across the province, they really start seeing clusters in the province. Maybe there's a healthcare IT cluster, or there's a energy storage cluster. So we do actually write white papers that inform you about the industry, about Ontario, about what's going on in this space. Got? Okay, this is my last slide. And so these are some metrics. We worked with almost 1,000 entrepreneurs across the province and delivered almost $18 million worth of service. I just want to qualify. What I mean by that is we haven't charged anybody $18 million. That is the value of the services. So if you or an entrepreneur went out and bought a report, it would be $6,000 if you bought it. But we are giving it to you for free. So it's the value of services. That was a capacity that's there in the province, which we've been able to provide free of charge. And that's it. Thank you very much. Sure, yeah.
Thank you, Usha. Usha will be at the back of the theater to answer any questions if you have them, just to keep us rolling along. Just to let the new people in the audience know, I'm Narendra Hall, Vice President of Finance Programs and Administration for the Ontario Centres of Excellence. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next Innovation Partner presentation from the National Research Council. Trish Barrow is a Concierge Advisor with a new Concierge Service. The Government of Canada's Concierge Service provides a single access point where small and medium-sized enterprises can find high-quality, timely advice to help them innovate and accelerate their growth by helping them navigate the available innovation resources and support programs. If you have any questions, we'll have some time at the end to answer them. Trish.
Well, Narendra actually just stole part of my presentation. So the concept behind Concierge Service is pretty simple. Canadians, small, medium enterprises, entrepreneurs can be overwhelmed by the array of innovation support programs and services that are available to help accelerate their growth. Point of Concierge is to help them navigate that whole process. Background, I don't know if you all remember the Jenkins panel that came out at about, I guess, 2010. And one of their findings was that we need to be able to help the small, medium enterprises manage the information that's available for them. They recommended that a concierge service be established to do this very thing. Budget was approved for it in 2012, and we were launched in December of that year, of 2013, sorry. So why the focus on an SME? 54.3% of the GDP is produced in the business sector, and SMEs are a vital part of that. They're striving to be more innovative, and in doing so, they're facing a number of challenges. And the survival rate for small businesses is about 50% of new firms, so continues to be low. They hunt through many and numerous sources and websites to identify programs that are available for them. Process can be confusing, it can be time-consuming. You all know that you want to be focusing on what your business is and not looking for programs. So that's where Concierge comes in. We want to be the ones that the SMEs will go to access these programs. What do we do? Well, the heart of the Concierge Service are the 12 concierge advisors that are across the country. What we do is work with our partner organizations and also clients directly and help them get involved and get introduced to the programs they need to meet. We provide up-to-date and easily accessed information that's presented in normal language and not government speak. We provide guidance and business innovation assistance. We provide referrals and introductions to service partners and other organizations. And when I talk about referrals, it's a direct referral to an individual and not into that great government black hole of funding. So you'll get to talk to somebody individually. How do you connect with us? There are 3 ways to connect with us. The first way and the easiest way is through the website. It's up and running. We've got, I believe, 90 partners listed there with about 140 different programs. The website it's fairly easy to navigate. It has our 1855 number on it, and also you can submit your information and send us an email directly. Second way is through our client contact center, 1855-53-GUIDE. There you'll be spoken to by an information officer who will take your information, and that file then gets transferred to the concierge advisor in your region. And the third way is direct introductions to a concierge advisor through one of our partners. We are closely aligned with IRAP and their 200 ITAs, so get many referrals that way. We also get referrals from FedDev and other partner programs. So our results since launching, even without a strong marketing campaign, we've had over 1,100 contacts through the Concierge Service and directly to concierge advisors. Over 800 clients have been assigned to and assisted by concierge advisors across the country. We're averaging about 600 web hits per week, and we're currently redesigning the website to make it even more applicable to your needs. 90 partner program profiles and refer protocols, as I mentioned before, and we have 12 concierge advisors in place across the country. 4 of us are in Ontario. What's the advantage for our partners? We complement, not compete with their programs. So we provide them with referrals that are vetted before going to them. We share information about our partner programs and services and resources, and provide qualified referrals. What our future is, right now we're focusing on government programs. Our next step is to establish an expert information database, then moving on to equipment and facilities and global opportunities finally. So we figure we'll be at global opportunities by the end of this fiscal. So again, to contact us, there's these 3 ways. You can also visit us right there at Discovery. We'd love to talk to you there. And any questions? Short and sweet. Nope? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. We're kind of going off program a bit on the programs. It has one more presentation, but that one won't be taking place today. So this concludes our Innovation Partners presentation for this evening. I want to thank you. I want to thank all the presenters today for taking the time to enlighten us with the many programs and organizations that are available to work with you and drive Ontario innovation forward. Many of the presenters have booths here today. If you have any questions about OCE programs, the welcome area has business development managers available to answer questions. And I hope to see everybody at the opening networking reception at 6:15 today. Thank you.